this cake is delicious. You should sell these. So I'm talking really fast because my air conditioner is turned off during the times when I'm filming this. So I'm probably starting to get really shiny out here. Do you really need to monetize your pottery? So you've made this piece of pottery and you've shown it to your friends or gifted it to a friend and they're like, wow.
You should sell on Etsy. You should sell on a website. You should sell this at shows.
Maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe it's a hobby for you and this is what you do to decompress like from your real job. You know, why should you have to sell your pottery if you don't want to? Well, there are actually some really important reasons why people have to sell their pottery. And for one, pottery is a really expensive hobby. Now you could go down to Walmart and spend $5 to buy a coffee mug, or you could make it yourself with $15,000 worth of equipment. Yeah, so pottery is not for everyone. Pottery is really a hobby for people who have extra money. If you're broke, do not quit your job and decide to go make pottery because you will end up in hardship. I think probably. If you're dependent on your job and you think, I'm going to start a pottery business, that's a great way to make money. There is social pressure to sell your work, financial pressure to sell your pottery, which is your materials and your tools and everything are really expensive, so you need to sell in order to make more. And then there's the physical pressure to sell pottery. No, nobody's beating you up. What I'm talking about is there are physical space limitations for you keeping everything that you make. I mean, you're gonna run out of house space to hold it all. At that rate, you have to say, what do I do with this stuff? Do you give it to Goodwill or do you give it as gifts to friends? What are you gonna do with it? And a lot of people think, wow, I can support my hobby by selling it. And I think that's great. I just think you shouldn't feel so much pressure if you are in a financial position where you don't have to sell your pottery. Maybe you don't want to. You should do this and you should do that and you should sell on Etsy. You can say to them, thank you. That's it. And then there's the other thing when people ask you to do something that you don't want to do. Hey, would you teach my kids to do pottery? No. Simple. Just no. And some people might think it's mean to not follow up with an explanation. Or you could just say, no, but thank you so much for asking. How kind. That's it. Don't offer explanations. When you offer explanations about why you don't want to do something, then they find reasons to pick at it. You'll be like, no, I'm really not that interested in teaching kids because they're messy. Oh, my kids are perfect. They're not messy. So you get explanations, then they have something to argue with you about. And the best way that I know to deal with people who ask you to do something you don't want to do is say, no, I really don't want to do that. And that's it. You don't have to offer any further explanation or just no. If you knew someone else who wants that job, you could certainly push them in that direction. And I've done this for friends. When people look for someone who wants to commission a painting, I have friends who paint. So I say, hey, here's who to contact about getting a painting done for you, which is really neat. If you ever want to have a painting done, I know people. And sometimes I've even taken commissions, but for the most part, I have regretted it. Pottery commissions are tough because you don't know what the final result's going to be after you put in all this labor. You don't know if they're going to want it. So, some people might take money up front or take half down and say, if you don't like it when it's finished, then I'll keep it and you don't have to pay the rest and, our transaction is finished at that point. What I normally do is I just make the piece, and if it's something that I could resell to someone else, I say, I'll make it, and if you like it when it's done, then you can buy it and I'll ship it to you. And so I don't have any real expectation of those people of fulfilling this verbal contract with me. That way it makes it really easy for them to back out if they don't like it. I don't want anybody to have my stuff that doesn't like it. I don't sell that much pottery. I'm mostly interested in doing pottery for the entertainment enjoyment of it, at the same time as I just love making videos about pottery. So I make my pottery very slowly. I have the same pot sitting around. There's a tiny pottery wheel in there. I have the same pot sitting around that I've been slowly glazing for a couple of weeks now, and that suits me just fine lately. When I first made all these pots, I thought, oh my gosh, now I have to glaze them. I'm so upset. Until I realized, hey, what if it wasn't pressure? What if there wasn't the pressure to glaze them all at once or do this like long haul thing, get all of these things through my tiny kiln really quickly? And once I took that pressure off myself, wow, I started enjoying it again. As far as whether or not you're ready to sell your pottery, you're the gatekeeper there. That's up to you. If somebody wants to pay you for it, then you are technically ready to sell. But if you don't feel it, if you don't feel like your stuff is good enough, don't sell it. You can always hit it with a hammer. It's hot. It's probably 100 degrees today in Texas. Maybe you have imposter syndrome. There's an awful lot of fly activity. Hate flies. No offense, I know you're necessary to the ecosystem, but I don't like you. I opened the door and I think he went out. It worked. Impostor syndrome is when you feel like you're not really qualified. Like some famous actors have this. It's funny, like they'll go to an awards show and they're like, what if everybody finds out I don't have any talent? It's like, dude, you made it this far. You must have some talent. The same thing about if somebody wants to buy your pottery and you're like, oh, it's not good enough. Well, A, it could be not good enough and they just like you. Or B, it could be good enough. Or C, it's just not good enough for you and you don't feel like parting with it. That's fine. It's fine. But, so there was this guy, and he put a post on Facebook about how his wife went shopping at the Goodwill and she found one of his pottery pieces there. And it was a pottery piece that he had gifted to a friend. And he was very upset and he was thinking of confronting his friend over not valuing this gift that he gave him and having given it up. And I thought, goodness gracious, what a difficult friend to have. That he requires that a gift that he gives you, you have to keep it forever. That's, in my book, that's really kind of invasive too. When you give a gift, I feel like it's that person keeps it as long as it gives them joy. And when it stops giving them joy, they either give it to someone else or give it to charity. Do not, like, I hope that people don't throw my stuff in the trash can if they don't want it anymore. But if they do, you know, it goes back to the earth and it's fine. But I would most prefer that they give it to charity if they don't want it. If they don't like it and it doesn't bring them joy, why should they keep it? Who knows? But I think we should not take it personally if one day you and I go into the Goodwill and find some piece of art that we've created that somebody didn't want anymore. It's about to become the property of somebody who really desires it. So apparently, some very valuable pots have been found at Goodwill, like Francoma and other famous potters. So yesterday I was with one of my closest friends, and we don't see each other enough, but we got together for lunch and I took her back to my house and she looked at my pottery and she said, well, how much does one of these go for? And I said, you will never believe it, but people pay me $65 to $85 for mugs like that. And she said, I would never pay that much for a mug. And she was basically saying, you know, they sell mugs that do the job at Walmart for $5, which they do, totally. I said there are people who value one-of-a-kind pieces of art and there are people who don't. And I don't take any offense to the fact that she doesn't. I've always known this about her. She's not interested in art. It's just not her thing. But she loves me, and that's cool. So I think we should not take personally the fact that not every person out there in the world is our customer. Your customer is a special kind of person that values what you do. I have to say one thing about the $5 Walmart mugs. They work. You can stick them in the microwave. You can eat out of them. They're hopefully lead-free. Some of the mugs at Walmart look like they are handmade. Maybe they are by somebody who earns 25 cents an hour. I don't know. There are those people that will see your originality and realize that that thing that you painted is one of a kind and they can't get it anywhere else and they value it for that reason. Or they genuinely just want to support creative people being allowed to do the creative jobs that they want to do. If you don't love my pottery but you just want to buy it because you love me, well, that's okay. I love you too. You know, there's this other thing that bugs me about people telling me, you should sell this. Like every time I tried a different hobby, I wove a basket. These are good. You could sell those. And I didn't know what to say. And I was like, oh my gosh, I could never even get an hourly wage selling these things. And so I was like, why would you? I mean, to me, they're just looking at here. I said, I filled in the right kind words after seeing this person's creation. And to me, I'm looking at the whole thing going, that is a terrible profit margin. I'm never going to sell those. It was just fun to do. It was fun to prove that I could. I've always pressured myself to try and sell a product of whatever I've created. I always thought an artist has to sell. An artist has to make more and more work and make something saleable. And that is a tough bargain. It's tough enough for a regular business to come up with a product and market it to people, having a huge, like a big company with a big marketing budget and a big audience, and they can market this thing to the world, and it's tough enough for them to sell something. And then you want an independent artist to compete with that, to compete with these big players and actually make a living creating stuff. I think a lot of people, they just want to say something nice. So the best answer is always just thank you. And thank you for being here. I appreciate all the likes and the comments, and you guys are the best. And I'm so happy that we're building this community together. So please let me know what you think in the comments.